And here we are. After a fairly short absence, we have returned to discuss all of the nitty-gritty goodness of Summer Game Fest and the other things that we saw. How are you doing, Mr. Jor, after your long flight back home?
I want to say one thing. I know there was some confusion about it, but I can confirm Luke Stevens is a real person. I sat next to him. I touched him.
Yeah.
He was real.
Yeah, baby.
I know. Yeah.
I know it might be a
people are
surprise. We are different
Yeah.
people. Joe Raptor is not an AI.
No.
We were not convinced until he walked into the restaurant, but no, he is real.
Yeah.
Actually, we met outside of our Airbnb on the street, and Jor got exposed to Los Angeles in its nitty-gritty beauty.
Yeah.
What was your impression of LA when you arrived?
So, of course, I had a nice spot in downtown LA, and I've been there a couple of years back for E3, but with COVID, of course, and E3 dying, and this was my first time being here with Summer Game Fest. And downtown, they have the Summer Game Fest campus, so basically the mini E3 where all the companies are. And walking from my hotel to that campus was a crazy experience. So you have your businessman walking the street, and then next to it is people living on the street. I don't know. I saw some people like limping. I saw people lying on the floor, kind of behaving like a zombie. It was pretty scary. Then I heard an explosion. I thought it was like a war zone. And then I was playing Lego Horizon. So it was like a weird combo between the rich lifestyle and the poor, and being constantly reminded of that and seeing that on the street was like a crazy experience. Again, I can't remember it being this bad. So as someone from Amsterdam where it doesn't get that bad, it was pretty crazy.
A little bit of a system shock, basically.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what I will say, when we arrived, Jacob and I were walking around because we didn't want to Uber everywhere because it's expensive over in LA. It's like $80 to go 2 miles. It's ridiculous. But walking around, I remember turning to Jacob and being like, I feel like I'm actually walking through Night City. I get where the inspiration came from, because it's a very different world. Where all of this took place was in an area, if you are from LA or California, you probably know where this is, but it's a place called the Fashion District. And that makes it sound really like, oh, so there's Gucci and Versace there. No. The locals call it the Garment District, which is much less sexy. And basically, I'll put it on screen so you guys can kind of see kind of ballpark. Wait, let me enable it so it actually works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Okay, it's not going to work. Anyway, the Fashion District is just a collection of really small shops that go and stretch for miles and miles, and it's pretty calm during the weekdays. When we arrived, it was pretty empty and there were a lot of homeless people kind of camped up. But over the weekend is when everybody goes there to go shopping at all the little shops and stuff, mom and pop shops. And that's when it gets really busy and the police come, and they have entire trucks, for example, that are specifically decorated with full body wraps. And they're just LA Fashion District cleanup crew. And there's dozens of these trucks, and they just drive the streets, pick up garbage from the ground and toss it into the trucks and try to keep up with it that way. Because people, we saw, people will just grab a drink from one of the vendors, drink it, and then just throw it on the ground and just keep walking. It was very jarring. And for Jor, I'm sure it was very jarring. But
and I was like, I just want. I saw, oh, it's a 10-minute walk. I'm of course gonna do it. But in those 10 minutes, I saw everything. It was crazy. So I took the Uber after some point. I was like, I prefer it that way.
Yeah, it's the first day we were there, Jacob stepped in a puddle of blood because apparently some homeless people had gotten in a fight, and so he's got to get new shoes. So that was a whole thing. And then later that day, we came across a lady while we were walking to SGF to get our badges. on, I think, Friday morning. It was. So she's like, we see this lady and she's passed out on the sidewalk, and there are 2 big bottles of Don Julio laying empty around her, and it's like, dude, she is gone. And it's just a lady that is passed out on the ground wearing nothing but underwear and like underneath a cardboard box, and everybody is still shopping and just stepping over her. Literally, it's crazy. And so we're like, oh, that's crazy. So we did our stuff, and then the next day we went back and she was gone, and we're like, oh no, was she dead? But then we saw her smoking crack in the alleyway just a block over, and we were like, I've never been so happy to see somebody smoking crack. I was like, she's okay. Hooray. It was very different.
I also saw someone that got hit. Like, of course, you have all these small what do you call them? Like these electrical vehicles.
Oh, the scooters?
Yeah, the scooters. And I think someone got hit with the scooter because they were like lying on the floor, and like the ambulances were there. It was kind of crazy.
Geez.
So, I mean, like going to the convention center, you don't really go to that area of downtown LA. But now for Summer Game Fest, it is in the sort of creator space, or what they call it. But yeah, you have to go to through the fashion district. Again, it is not a fashion district.
Yeah.
If you there are other places that are also called fashion districts. This one is different.
Yeah, I got the vibe that it was maybe they saved a bit of money by going over here, which is fine. Once we got to the space, they basically rented out like a city block of, I'm guessing it's owned by a single like owner, and they rented it out for like corporate events and stuff. Because inside these like gated walls and everything, it was very nice. You did not feel like you were over there anymore, and it was fine.
Yeah, but that makes it extra crazy, right? That it's such a divide. When you like walk down one street. But the actual event was great. I actually liked the campus, like Summer Game Fest, maybe more than E3, because E3 is super busy, lots more people, and you cannot get an appointment anymore if you didn't get it beforehand. So how it usually works, of course, companies reach out to us, or we reach out to companies being like, hey, we're there, can we see your game? Then you make an appointment, and then you have like a schedule before you even go to LA. But here, when you reach the sort of Jeff Keighley Playday area, they know, because you can only get there when you're invited. Thanks to Luke and your manager, by the way, for getting me in. So appreciate that. But once I was in, they know, okay, this person has a following or whatever because they are invited to the show. So then walking up to a desk being like, hey, I want to see Monster Hunter Wilds. They're like, sure, we have some spots in this presentation. Come back in half an hour and you're going to do it. Oh, I want to play Phantom Blade Zero. Sure, we still have a spot there and there. So it's super easy. Really, if you try your hardest, you can play almost everything there. And with E3, it was all fully booked, or getting from point A to point B was super hard. This was super relaxed, and everyone was super chill. Met Jeff Keighley. He knew the channel, so that was fun. It was just fun seeing everyone walking around. And of course, this was... And the Ubisoft Forward was like close to... they had the Bellagio, the theater, rented out for their 2 big games that I'm sure we're going to talk about. And it was all close to each other. I had a great time, and it was fun, like meeting you, JV, Andy Reloads, lots of people, at certain different events, and catching up.
I thought it was awesome. JV, by the way, is like 15 feet tall. That dude's huge. I had no idea. But yeah, everybody's just a delight, and it's pretty weird. Like sometimes I forget kind of where we are in terms of like size and influence and blah blah blah, because like we run into Jake Baldino, and he knows and is like somebody that we've interacted with before in like passing, but like he knows the channel, knows the live channel and the stuff we do with podcasts and stuff, and it's super cool to see.
Oh really? Oh cool.
Yeah. And like you're playing a game at one of the booths, and then you just hear like chuckling behind you, and you turn around and Phil Spencer is there, just kind of watching the gameplay. It's like, that looks pretty good, guys. And then he carries
Yeah.
on, and then Sarah Bond, who's like, she's like as tall as my mom. She's like 5 foot tall, at least it seemed that way. She's tiny, and she's also there rubbing shoulders and elbows. I don't know the difference.
That was another takeaway. Some people are way larger or smaller than you think, because of course the webcam is a very like, you always see this from a person. So then when actually walking around, well, you're way smaller than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
same
funny.
with Jeff. Jeff is smaller than I thought he would be.
Oh,
he's like probably, I don't know, maybe like 5'6", 5'8". He's a smaller dude. But yeah, it was just, and the networking is really, really useful. Like, you can talk to other creators or TikTokers or whoever may be there. There weren't many creators at SGF. It was like surprisingly majority media, it seemed, like from big outlets and websites. There were the occasional YouTubers you might run into, but it was a lot of media guys and a lot of devs and stuff like that. And like Joe Raptor said, it was pretty relaxed and chill. They had food trucks, and like nothing was ever that booked out. The one exception being Elden Ring. Everybody wanted to see that, and Elden Ring was like booked out a month ahead of time, and there's a reason for that we'll get to when we talk about it later. That was very surprising, and cool. So we'll get into that. But as for the whole kind of breakdown of everything that happened, of course we had Summer Game Fest itself, and then we had the Summer Game Fest play days or whatever that happened over the next few days, where people got to try those games that were shown, or a lot of them, and then some games that were not shown at those events, like Elden Ring or others, and then you could try those, and they just didn't have a presence in the show. And then beyond that, there was the Xbox Showcase, which was basically just a video that was streamed, but you could go to the theater and sit around people and watch it all together. There was some swag and stuff there if you wanted. And of course the Ubisoft event that we went to, and then there were things kind of mixed in between. I think it probably makes the most sense to just go chronologically through that. So to start with Summer Game Fest itself, Jeff Keighley had spent weeks and weeks kind of calming people down. Maybe don't get like, I think he said specifically, there's no one last thing. And it was pretty clear like this was not going to be a heavy hitting year. This was going to be a little bit lighter. And I think that kind of ended up being the case. A lot of people found it fairly underwhelming. He posted the poll after the show, and people mostly rated it like a D or a C. And I think, he was trying to keep expectations in check, but this is always going to be the problem when you are a third-party showcase and you have first-party devs and publishers like Xbox that are doing a show right next to you. Of course, they're going to save their biggest and coolest stuff for their own show. And so it comes with the territory. He still had some decent things that were cool.
This is also like a relatively slower year. Like if we already look at next year, it will probably be better. But then I think maybe don't do like a 2-hour show. I really think the length was, compare this to the Xbox show. The Xbox show was like half the length almost.
Yeah.
And had way more bangers.
One thing somebody said was they felt like Jeff Keighley's shows often feel like they are trying to do like the Oscars thing. They're trying to be performative, whereas like Xbox's show was just old school E3 showcase. Like, we got cool games, look at them, and that's it. Like, they weren't trying to do any cool musical component like Ubisoft. They weren't trying to make a show out of it. They were just showing cool games they had. And I think that's largely true. Jeff Keighley's a bit of a showman, and sometimes that translates well when you got big games to complement it, but when you don't have a lot of big games, then it just comes off like you're just padding out time in the schedule. But as for go ahead.
Like I wanted to, because did you see the article that dropped just before the Summer Game Fest live show, like how much money it cost for a 1-minute trailer, for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and 2.5?
Yes. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, that really, like, I was really watching that show with that in my mind constantly, and then it's crazy to see some parties getting like a Valorant near the end was like 8 minutes or something. Like that cost like $1 million or more. So I was just looking at the show also from that lens, and that's why I really think that maybe if Jeff had like full control, he would be like, dude, Valorant, you're coming to console. That's like a 1 minute announcement. But if Riot is like, we can pay you a ton of money, he's like, sure, take the stage, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's not helping the show for sure.
I think so. Like I have complicated feelings on this because for one, it's kind of like when you find out the pricing for Super Bowl ads and you're like, what? A 30-second ad is how many millions? Like it's crazy and it breaks your brain. But where I'm at, like honestly, E3 died because they couldn't find a way to make it sustainable. It was so expensive to do, and it was just kind of chaotic. And then even then, the quality of it was dropping because they couldn't retain anybody, any big like publishers. They just wanted to do their own showcases and stuff for cheaper. So like they just couldn't find ways to make it work and make it sustainable. So it died out. Summer Game Fest has high prices and is expensive to showcase your stuff in, but at least it exists and is sustainable. And if anybody can afford to pay these high price tags, it's probably the devs of Valorant. It's probably, Sony with Lego Horizon, it's those guys. So I'm totally unbothered by it. And if that's what keeps events like these going and healthy, I'm all for it. Now, that being
No,
said,
yeah. Oh, sorry.
oh, I was just gonna
I'm
follow up.
curious about this point.
I don't think he's charging that to everybody. Like the one man developer that made the like cute cuddly bear, prison escape game. I don't think he charged him whatever $500,000 or whatever to showcase that. I think there are plenty of examples where Jeff has kind of, you're covered. We'll cover this. You just showcase your cool game. And so there's some instances where clearly he's taken a paycheck, like when he does a trailer for a mobile game or whatever. But then there's other cases where you can tell he probably didn't charge them at least the full price.
It's I think an interesting push and pull because if, for example, like 3 years ago when the Elden Ring trailer was being shown, like you're not gonna say no to that, but do they then not pay, right? Because that was really that thing that elevated the whole show, and that's I think what really worked with Xbox to kind of get ahead of ourselves already. But because that show was so good, every game looked better in the process. While if that game Mixtape, for example, was part of the recent state of play, I think way more people would have actually cared about it. So I do think that you have to sometimes be like, we want that game because that it will actually elevate the show. So I'm very curious what those deals look like. But it was just interesting looking at the show, being like, oh, Star Wars Outlaws, 1 minute trailer to basically hype up that they will have more gameplay in a few days. Yeah, that's like the 250,000. I could totally see that Ubisoft be paying that. But my thing overall, I think with this Summer Game Fest show was it felt like, and that's of course what we heard as well during COVID, and with E3 dying, like when COVID happened and E3 was not going to work like as a physical event in 2020, a lot of companies were like, whoa, it's actually kind of nice because we don't have to rush to this early June deadline for our game that is coming out 6 months later. We can now put on our own show maybe in July and in August. And for us as a viewer, that really sucked because Summer Game Fest was every week there was one show and then a few weeks nothing and then another. Like it was like a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, of course, the Summer Game Mess came from Jeff Grubb, which was nice. But now it's back in this sort of weekend, which is nice. I really do dig that. But companies are still like, if we're not ready, we're not gonna like have people like do overtime or whatever to get a cool trailer out for Summer Game Fest. We will just say, hey, we got more at Gamescom. And that's what this show kind of felt like as well. Hey, Monster Hunter Wilds, yeah, we're showing the same level, but at Gamescom, and there were a ton of other games where it was also like, but at Gamescom, and then I'm like, okay, but why show up here? Why have this event now if everyone is teasing stuff? Like the Civilization trailer, why? It was nothing. There was nothing in there. That could have been like a blog post saying, yeah, we're launching next year and it's coming to all platforms at the same time. That was basically the news, and they showed a trailer with no gameplay. Like, I think overall the show really lacked gameplay for really a lot of big titles. So I don't know. It really felt like, of course, if you're Jeff and you put up, and I think it's good to have it every year because, of course, you make sure that people tune in every year. But I do hope that, and it's probably never gonna happen, but if he looked at this lineup, he maybe could have said, okay, let's do half an hour less or whatever and make it a bit of a better show. But I get I get the push and pull, but it just is not great for the Summer Game Fest name that this was what they put up, I think.
Yeah, and I think also sometimes I get the feeling like, you know, Jeff is kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. Because, like, for example, a lot of people were like, you should stop focusing so much on big AAA stuff. I remember articles about that a few years ago where they're like, you should showcase more indie games so that they have a chance to stand out on your big platform. Jeff's like, that makes sense. Let's do that. And then he showcases indie games. And then everybody complains that it's a lot of indie games and not enough big AAA stuff. And so, like, if he flips the other way, then people complain that he's just boosting up the corporate side of the business and not helping the little guys. So there's always going to be complaints and frustrations with it. But at the end of the day, like, if the games are good, it's just kind of a gut check. Like, people saw the Xbox showcase, and even now you see some people trying to be upset about stuff that was in the showcase because there's some people that just can't be happy about anything, and so they're trying to find things. Yeah, they're trying to find things to like throw fits about. But after the Xbox showcase, everybody was like, "That was pretty fire, dude. That Doom looks great. You know, like South of Midnight looks awesome." And at that point, the games kind of speak for themselves. If the games look good, people will be satisfied with the show. And so it just like people's gut will kind of lead them through most of this. But after SGF, I mean, what was your biggest and most exciting game that you saw as part of the Summer Game Fest Live? What was your...
You mean the first day show?
Like the actual live stream, yeah. What was
Yeah,
what did you think was the best game they showed?
I think I like finally seeing Lego Horizon was of course very exciting, and I think I speculated already on the podcast and also in my weekly gaming news roundup video that it might be coming to Switch, and that was true, and that was probably also why they didn't put it in the state of play. I think it's just very interesting also to see Sony experimenting with that. This is kind of random, but I had a dream that they put God of War Ragnarok on Switch. Maybe it will happen. Take it to the bank. No, but yeah, like I thought it was surprisingly fun. I played the game as well, which was kind of cool. It's of course, as you expect, the gameplay depth is not really there, but it's a very fun retelling of the Zero Dawn story. So yeah, it is the Zero Dawn, first game story, but completely different. And people who were first like angry with Aloy are now suddenly nice. Or the whole, like, they will still follow the same beats, but with the Lego humor where they don't take things seriously. And also, things are completely different. Like, Rust gives you a focus that's very Horizon lore heavy, but like Aloy, of course, as a kid, finds this device in like a ruin. But in this Lego game, it's like, here, have it. Here, all your team members can have it as well. It has co-op, couch co-op, online co-op. And it's very cute. They have some pretty cool customization. They have a sort of home base that you can build. So you can build like different buildings that have like the wardrobe or a market. And yeah, that expands over time. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I'm curious how it will do though, because that's of course kind of hard to like roll Switch gamers really care about this. That's gonna be interesting. But I thought the showing was pretty good. So that was totally my favorite, I think, and I thought the Phantom Blade Zero stuff looked pretty cool too, and also got to play that. I think you as well, right? Which was it just like a fun Souls-like type game with a ton of like abilities, and that's why I liked Sekiro a lot, because it had like more ways for your character to kind of engage with these like typical boss fights. And Phantom Blade Zero already had that in the demo as well, and you were really, really like rewarded for testing out the sort of combinations that you had. You had like a gun that functions as a cannon, so you had to charge it up. You had a bow,
Mm-hmm.
which you could also charge up. And the game had a small tutorial, but it did not explain everything. So when I was like trying things, well, whoa, this works as well. And then the enemy would be down for a few seconds, or you could counter this attack, or the enemy would like send projectiles at you. You could parry them. And they did not explain that, but when you figured that out, it was really satisfying. It had some pretty cool boss fights and environmental things you could use. You could sneak around, do stealth, but then you got caught and you would be in combat. I had a ton of fun with that game. So I would say Lego Horizon and Phantom Blade Zero were my favorites. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, just seeing another trailer for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 got me
Oh
all
yeah,
excited because that game looks amazing, and I'm a big fan of the first one, so I'm excited to see that. As for, I mean, Monster Hunter Wilds, that looks great. They confirmed cross, like actual crossplay across different systems, which is awesome. Like that's been a frustration of mine with World, for example, where I want to play on PC just for better performance, but all of my friends play on PlayStation. That's where they got the game initially years ago. So it's like, well, I guess I got to play on PlayStation. It is what it is. So it's just a nice thing to have. And Phantom Blade Zero, yeah, that was a game that was just solid and really straightforward. Played much less like a Soulsborne than I was expecting, and even the devs were like, a lot of people have come in expecting this to just be a Soulsborne. It's not. It's like a Devil May Cry combo-based combat system, and I liked it, but it was very different from what you might be used to, because it's like you load up different combos. So if you do square, square, triangle, 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 that will load up a series of animations that will play out. So you just tap those quickly, and then you can take your hand off the controller, and it will continue swinging and doing that for you. So it's a little bit different.
it's more Stellar Blade as well. If you compare it to like a recent title.
Yeah. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once it clicks, it's like, okay, I'm down for that.
Yeah, it's cool.
Beyond that, which was a pleasant surprise and cool to see, there were some other games that we tried that weren't shown as part of these things. So like Replaced was another game I tried, and that game is just beautiful. The ambiance is amazing. The music is great. The story, world, and characters are really interesting. Very cyberpunky in its setup. And so that's what I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
That's like ex Limbo devs or
Might
not?
be. I'm not sure. Whatever it is, it's awesome. I think it's also a Ukrainian game, because Stalker 2 was there, and of course Replaced, and I believe they're both from Ukrainian devs, which already wildly impressive they can develop with everything going on in their country and surrounding areas. So props to them for still putting out some solid stuff. But those were all great, and yeah, I was thoroughly impressed with those games. There were some others that kind of landed flat. So I'm looking through the lists now. Deer and Boy looked relatively interesting. They did a big segment on Bloomhouse Games where they were revealing all of their indie horror games that they were kind of publishing and heading up, and those seemed very interesting. I didn't get the chance to try any of them, but some people really, really enjoyed those. Another cinematic trailer for Batman Arkham Shadows. I don't know why they keep doing cinematic trailers. Like, I know that VR games don't tend to show well in terms of graphics, but every time they do any trailer and they show next entry in the Arkham series, everybody gets disappointed when they see it's a VR game. It still could be very good. I like VR stuff. I like the last Batman Arkham VR game, even though it was only like 40 minutes long. If you got it for like $5 or $10, it was kind of cool. But I just don't know why they keep doing this. They just keep kicking themselves, and they don't need to. It's like, show the VR people that are interested in VR that stuff, and we'll be good.
Yeah, and that was like the prime example of the trailers we saw. Like that was a nothing trailer. It was okay. We already know it's not gonna be a game that we will be interested in if you're not into VR, but they still tried to sell it in a like a cool way. Like show the game. We all know it's a VR game. So yeah, I already forgot about it. Actually, now that you bring it up, I was like,
Yeah,
but
it's
that was the fun part, right? Where you were in the show when they like announced that.
yeah. So I was seated. For some reason, my little screen cap thing isn't working. Maybe if I do this. But I was seated in the venue, just a few rows behind Young Yeah. When they cut to Young Yeah, and then they come back and they show the camera with him. I was just a few seats behind him. And in front of me, just a few rows ahead and then to the right, was the whole Batman Arkham VR team that was there. They're all wearing the t-shirts, so it was pretty clear. And like when their trailer comes up, they kind of sit up and they're like, "Oh, here we go." And Jeff says, "The next chapter," whatever he said, I don't remember exactly, but he's like, "The next Arkham entry." People, oh, like 2,000, 3,000 people, however many people were in that theater. MetaQuest 3. Oh,
Yeah.
like I've never heard thousands of people sigh all in unison, and it was kind of magical. But I felt bad for the devs because like they're doing their thing, they're making a
And
game.
they announced it beforehand. It was not like they were teasing a new Batman Arkham
Yeah.
game. It was just how Jeff said it.
Yeah, it was one of those moments like I think Game Awards last year when Jeff was like, "The rumors were true."
Yeah, no, it was the Summer Game Fest as well.
It was
Yeah,
Summer Game.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
awesome.
Yeah, he does that, and then it's just like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and we're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess they were," but like that was such a big build-up.
Yeah.
I was expecting like Bloodborne 2 or something, but okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So,
By the way, real funny side story. Like I follow Herman Hulst on Instagram, and he just put up like a new shot of him, like just looking in the camera, like a body shot, like a pic, just like a profile picture or whatever. And like after 2 minutes, I was just scrolling on Twitter, I saw it like pop up. After 2 minutes, there was already someone like, "Cool shot, but where is Bloodborne 2?" on his personal Instagram account.
that's
They
the
know where to find him. He must know.
dude, I my firm belief, and maybe we'll talk about this on stream later or something. I don't know if we'll get to it in the show, but my firm belief is that they are just sitting on a Bloodborne 2 PC port or remaster, whatever they're gonna do, and that's gonna be one of the either PS5 Pro launch titles or it's gonna be a PlayStation 6 launch title.
Yeah, I think like a Demon's Souls situation. And you mean just the Bloodborne 1, right? You said
Yeah.
Bloodborne 2.
Oh,
Yeah,
Bloodborne. Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, like a remaster, remake type of thing, because
Yeah.
they know that it's gonna sell like hotcakes and people are gonna freak out when they see it. So they're just sitting on it. Anyway,
Yeah.
with that, the other thing, just to go through these super
Yeah, the
chats real quick.
Spencer super chat.
Yes.
Let's quickly talk about that.
To mention the first super chat we got this morning
Oh,
from
yeah.
Sumaya Goel. Thank you for that. Is there any rumbling of Lies of P DLC? I'm getting a bit concerned. It was unofficially scheduled for late 2024 by Neowitz. I heard nothing about it. As far as I know, they were not at any of the events this summer. So still could be on track for that, but they're just gonna reveal
like
more
with
later.
DLCs, I mean, we saw, of course, the Alan Wake 2 DLC that was like shadow drops. Like, especially for a game like Lies of P, I don't think you need much build up or a trailer during Summer Game Fest. Maybe during Gamescom or whatever, Xbox might do something where they're like, "Hey, it's out" or something. But yeah, I still think it's gonna happen. They said it in their investor meeting, I think. So they're not gonna lie to investors unless it, of course, has been delayed. But that, I think it's gonna be Gamescom probably when that will be revealed.
And I think Jor's right. They don't need much marketing for that. They could drop it today and we would all be downloading it. And with how viral that type of thing goes, I think it would be fine. Spencer, thank you for the $5 super chat as well. I'm late, so maybe I missed it, but any funny/goofy stories from SGF besides terminally online cat ear guy? Any parties, you guys? Happy or love you guys. Happy Friday. Yeah, in case anybody didn't hear about that, during SGF, there was a guy sitting in front of me wearing little, like a hat with cat ears and then big goggles on it. And I don't, maybe like a dog collar. I couldn't get a good look, but he was one of the most terminally online people I've ever seen in my life. Seriously, through the whole 2-hour show, he's seated like this with his phone like on his lap, and he's watching Instagram reels of himself on a loop. And every time it would auto scroll, he'd swipe back and rewatch it. It was like, bro, touch grass. Like, what are we doing? It was
Yeah.
it was a little scary and jarring, but
So that was next to the people that were only talking about Street Fighter. You had a great...
oh yeah,
yeah,
behind me were the Street Fighter guys who right after that Street Fighter reveal, for the rest of like the hour left in the show, they were just like, yeah, I tried dry reversals, but I don't really like Akuma because his dash jab is like really toxic, and I don't like doing high tiers. Like, it was, bro, shut up. People were telling them to hush, and then they'd stop speaking English and they'd start speaking Spanish, but talking about the same things. And it's like, that we can still hear you. Just because we can't understand you, we can still hear you. It was a whole thing. As for everything else, funny stories. Yeah, one of the TikTokers that I was talking to was seated behind Phil Spencer and Matt Booty during the Xbox like whatever thing. And after the Indiana Jones reveal, apparently Matt Booty has his, like, he's one of those guys that his phone's brightness is on all the way up, even in a dark theater. So he's like sitting there with the phone's flashlight basically shining up. And he said that he saw him texting Todd Howard because he could see the little profile tag or whatever, which is kind of fun. As for other funny little quirky stories,
I mean, the one from the Ubisoft event we went to after the Ubisoft Forward, like there was one guy invited who ripped off a video from Andy Reloads. So we were kind of like joking about walking up to him and saying like, dude, so do normal, because he made like a French video about like Andy Reloads put up like the 10 best Assassin's Creed games, and he put up like a video in French with basically the same footage and basically the same video, and Ubisoft still invited him to the show. But they clearly were not aware. So we were like close to those people. So we were like joking about giving him like a drink and then being like, who gave me this? And then Andy Reloads is there in the distance, so I see you.
Yeah, he's like, I figured you like my stuff, so I got you one of my drinks. We let the Ubisoft people know that guy had a history of doing that type of thing, and so we'll see if anything comes of it. But anyway, that was cool. Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, showed up at the Ubisoft Mixer for a little bit, and it's just overall it's a little bizarre to be at an event like that, and then you see all these people that you've seen on live streams or showcases or in interviews and stuff, and you actually see them there. It's a little like, oh wow, yeah, right, you're a real person. I don't know, like same thing when you're walking around. We were in the Capcom booth waiting to go in and see a preview of Monster Hunter Wilds, and that's when like Phil Spencer, and I think it was like he brought his kid, I don't know, I think there were head honchos from Xbox there, and they brought their kids, so I don't know whose kids were whose or something, but they were the only kids at the event, and they were like maybe 10, 11, 12 years old, but they were trying like the different demos, and then they went in with those guys to see the previews, and it's like, kind of makes sense if you were Phil Spencer's kid or a kid of another Xbox executive that was there. Yeah, Dad, can I come see these games early? Why not?
Outside you heard like beep, and it was like a truck of like money with like a Game Pass sort of truck where it was like loading money on.
Yeah, just cash.
Hoping to buy the Game Pass exclusivity for Monster Hunter. That was pretty wild.
Did I show Todd my candle? No, I never saw Todd. I also he
did see you, but
officially for legal reasons, I never saw Todd. But no, I never saw Todd. I had the chance of going to the Xbox stuff, but when I found out it was just going to be a video, I was like, so I'm going to spend hours like waiting, getting in, then I'm going to sit in a chair and watch a video I could just watch on my phone. And not to mention, we had Ubisoft preview stuff to like see those games like Shadows and Outlaws. And so I would have had to leave the Xbox Showcase halfway through to take an Uber across the city to the other venue, and it just didn't make sense. So I just watched it on my phone. But yeah, I didn't see Todd. That would have been funny. I'm sure at this point Todd has heard rumblings of a weird YouTuber that has a cardboard cutout and lights candles with his face on him. I think it would just be funny. I don't even know what I would do. I should have brought a candle just in case and then have him sign the candle or something. That would be hilarious. But yeah, I did not meet Todd, unfortunately. Yeah, he
Next
probably has a
year,
restraining order
mutants.
against me. Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Security would never let me get close.
yeah.
Is Joe Raptor as handsome in person as he is on stream? Yes, and then some. The first night Joe Raptor got in, we went to a steakhouse, Fleming Steakhouse in Los Angeles, and it was
Yeah, crazy.
delicious.
Really good. Yeah,
And
that was insane.
yeah, that was a glorious time. We drank and partied. It was wonderful. Yeah, through a sea of crackheads, nonetheless. Absolutely. So beyond that, speaking of crackheads, let's talk about the
Phil
Xbox.
Spencer.
So yeah, Phil Spencer. Let's talk about that stuff. So the Xbox Showcase happened on another night. It's all a blur, but the Xbox Showcase had a lot riding on it. We said in the podcast last week, they gotta nail this. Like, there's been so much negativity with the brand. It's been kind of embarrassing for people to be like, I'm an Xbox fan. People have been kind of quiet about it, but we knew that they had a lot of pots on the stove, and the opportunity was there for them to come out swinging. And boy, did they. If you had to rate the show on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put it?
I would say 9.
9. What would have made it a 10 for you?
More official dates. They were kind of vague about that. Some still had 2024, and I'm like, there are not a lot of months left, so why not put a date on it? I also thought some, for example, Diablo's trailer was really cool, but like the moment that trailer dropped, they had a blog post up about the new class, and like I was curious about that. I mean, the trailer looked awesome, sure, but I want to know information about the DLC, and they, for example, did not bring that. Some trailers were kind of like, I thought some of the and I'm very nitpicky. Like I thought it was a really great show, but just some things that I think they could have done better is that sometimes also with like certain games like Fable is 2025, and they're still like hiding something. It feels like that was my favorite game from the showcase. I love the part where they walked into the city, the main character, and was talking to these NPCs. The character models look insane. I think it was very funny. But then we got the gameplay, and it feels still like sort of the highlights. We see a finisher, we see an ability where you shoot someone up and then grab a bow to shoot them, or that you like catch an arrow, throw it back. But why no on like I want to see what actually sword fighting looks like, and they've been hiding that for like 2 streams now, which is kind of weird. So while other games like Perfect Dark is way further away, but that got like I wanted to see that for Fable, like this is what a mission in this game looks like, and for Fable we're still kind of wondering that. But overall, I think the third parties they had were bangers. They had the first gameplay, of course, for Assassin's Creed. They had the Life is Strange reveal. Game is still coming this year, which is awesome. They actually had that Fragpunk game. Really short trailer, but you immediately saw, okay, this is a 5v5 shooter, but it has cool mechanics where you use cards with a team, and then you can kind of work towards, or like you start a game, select some cards. During the match, you gain points, and with those points, you can use those cards, like give the enemies big heads, so you have easier headshots, etc. That immediately showed to me, okay, it makes sense that this in the show. That's a very interesting thing. Overall, the fact that there were not a lot of live service games, I think, was kind of wild. For like, it's really Sony is showing more and more live service games, while Xbox is showing more and more of the single player games that Sony is usually known for.
Yeah.
So overall, I really liked it. But for example, State of Decay 3, you finally showed the game, and I was still like, what are we looking at? Like, what is this trailer? So there were still some moments for me where I was like, they could have selected the better trailer. I felt the Indiana Jones part was really weak. I was kind of like, I was really open-minded, optimistic about the game. Seeing that cutscene though, ooh, that was not like, I know people liked it because it reminded them of the old school stuff. But if you actually like analyze that cutscene, there's a lot of weird stuff going on, and it just went on for a bit too long. So there were some parts where I was like, could be better. Overall, though, if you look at the grand scheme of things, the pace and the amount of reveals and gameplay for Perfect Dark again really blew my mind. So I thought it was a really good show overall.
Yeah, I think I would also rate it a 9, and for similar reasons, it doesn't quite pass over 10. I think if they had more firm dates, for example, or for some of the live service stuff, the few things they had, if they had demos or something to just really knock it out of the park and be like, yeah, there's stuff coming soon, in the far future, and right now. They had a couple of shadow drop things, but that, like, or I guess that was technically Remedy. But anyway, beyond that, I do agree that there were
They had
some
the
weird
Starfield, shadow drop.
Oh, you're right. They did. So they at least had that.
Yeah.
Just to kind of run through it roughly in order, I think Doom looks phenomenal. There's some interesting things. People have been kind of nitpicking the trailer, trying to pick apart what they might be hinting at. It seems like the ammo, shield, and stuff drops, at least, are not shown in this in the same way that they were in like Doom Eternal. So it seems maybe they've completely altered how that kind of gameplay loop works, where you're not having to go for like the glory finishers or anything. Instead, now you can just grind and then maybe refill ammo at a checkpoint at the end of the level. It's going to be interesting. It seems to be at least somewhat changed, which is cool. What I noticed, like, from the gun that uses heads for ammo, I'm like, okay, so is that gun refilled by killing creatures and then you use their skulls for ammo? So like that's how they kind of explain it. I don't know, but the levels seem much more open-ended than games previously. And I mean, I'm somebody that I like Doom as a franchise, but whenever I try to play it, I get horribly motion sick. My brain does not like it for whatever reason. And I've tried so many times to get into it. So instead, I'll just watch like streamers play it or other playthroughs and stuff. And I eat it up that way, but I would love to be able to play through it myself. So seeing this, I'm like, I got to figure it out because this looks absolutely fire, as the dragon is spitting actual fire through the monster's mouth. Beyond that, I totally agree. State of Decay is one of my kind of guilty pleasure franchises. I just love the gameplay loop of, like, I got started with the original, and that's still my baby. I love that. Even though it's clunky as all hell, it doesn't really work that often. It's still really just fun, and it's a novel take on the zombie horror survival genre, and I just love it. I still remember when my dear survivor, I think her name was Sarah or something, I had grinded so many hours with her, got her like leveled up like crazy. She was my baby. She was my baby, and she got swarmed by a horde, and because of permadeath with this, she was dead forever. And I still remember after she died, I put the controller down and just sat there for probably 2 minutes, just taking in what had just happened.
Was that the Days Gone plot? Because that was also about Sarah and Deacon finding Sarah.
Yeah, it's all connected. It's all interconnected. They're all the same game. But I mean, I agree. I think it's weird that they did all this and then we don't actually see anything actually from the game. It's like,
it like. I mean, people that are really into this probably see, they now changed this or whatever. But I think the South of Midnight like gameplay was great. That really showed, okay, I can see what this game will feel like when I pick up the controller. And same for Doom. Of course, it had many cuts, but that was also like pure gameplay. You understand what this game is. And for State of Decay, I was like, yeah, we already had a trailer like this, right? They had the cinematic trailer before it. I just want to see what is the gameplay loop. Like you maybe starting out, going on a mission, and then returning to your base and seeing all your survivors and something like that. It was just like, yeah, it's a zombie game. I get it, right? Like, give me something more.
Yeah, it's one of those sizzle reels, and I mean, one of the big things we've heard is that they apparently have had help from other Xbox studios to help them refine like graphics and to polish certain things up, and that's at least in theory, one of the big perks of this collaboration across studios is that they can work together and they can take like Coalition, really good at graphics. We get them involved and they help with that. And then we have over here the id Tech team, really good at shooting mechanics. So they're going to come help with the shooting mechanics. Like that's one of the ideas of having all these teams working under Xbox Studios kind of umbrella. And it seemed to be working well in some cases, like the idea that Fable graphically looks the way it does and runs the way it does is very, very impressive, considering that that's like a racing game team.
They now have help from Eidos Montreal. They
wow,
which is very interesting. Yeah. So the Guardians of the Galaxy team is, I mean, looking at the humor and stuff, it kind of it feels like a perfect fit. But that's overall very interesting because we of course know the initiative with Perfect Dark is working together with Crystal Dynamics, and now another ex Square Enix, and now Embracer Group team, Eidos Montreal is helping the Fable game, which is crazy.
Hell yeah. Nikki's calling me. She's at the doctor with the boys, so I'll let Joe Raptor continue. I'll be right back.
Okay, of course. So let me know, chat, what your favorite game was at the Xbox show, and if there are some other things you want to know, because we of course talked about a lot of it already. Again, I can't show you the gameplay, of course. I don't have that kind of magic that Luke has. But again, I think the South of Midnight stuff really showed. It really, after the first trailer, I was like, okay, I'm interested in this game and seeing the gameplay. It was not afraid to hide like some of the combat mechanics, which felt pretty clunky, but they showed everything. Like they were not like, no, we're afraid to show like Fable did. I see most people say Expedition 33. I saw some people talk about it as well in the chat before. That was of course the very cool looking game that turned out to be a turn-based game. I saw a lot of people. I have to, by the way, constantly dodge the light. I have to fix this in my set.
That's like great. Crazy. I am back. I agree. Expedition 33 looks great. I can pull up that footage, put it up on screen for anybody that hasn't seen it yet somehow. That one also looks great. But I think that one of the cool things about the Xbox showcase, especially for me, was just that you really got the vibe that, okay, now we're seeing the games that are pushing the boundary.
Yeah.
It actually looked like we had current gen, or I guess next gen, whatever, games that were being presented. Expedition 33 is like one of those that just looks beautiful. And it seems like that's going to be one of the big pushes for Xbox, and that maybe is why they've taken a little bit of extra time on some of these, is because they've been cranking those dials. Other things
sure. and that's pretty cool. Like I'll talk about for Expedition 33, like a game you've never heard about from a it's like a studio we don't really know about, right? And that's just where we're at right now, where even smaller teams or teams that you don't really know about, thanks to technology that has really advanced and these new consoles, can immediately catch your attention, because it's easier now than ever to make good looking games, which I think is a very nice thing. Wanted to, because I asked what people were what they liked the most. I see a lot of Doom. Perfect. It's pretty like that's I think what this show really nailed. It was something for everyone, and that's what we've been missing for a lot of shows recently, especially State of Plays as well, where if you don't like the big Sony game or the only big game they have in that show, you're not going to like the State of Play. And here, there's something for everyone. And that's, like you've been saying, what Xbox has been building. Like, it's crazy that a few years ago, this was a third-party show. But now they have Bethesda. They have, all their Xbox studios. They have Activision Blizzard. And that just combines very well. But let's talk a bit more about the things, because I think you wanted to say some things. And then I want to ask you a question about the broader, what do you think this means for the future of Xbox?
Yeah,
do you think it will move the needle?
So, like, obviously they had a super varied show. I mean, they had things like South of Midnight, they had things like Doom, they have things like Diablo, which of course are all for different, like, types of gamers. And that was the biggest thing you could take from it, is that there's just so many layers and different gaming groups and niches that they're able to target all at once with these games. The problem for Xbox in the past has just been either they don't have any games, or the games they do have really are inconsistent when it comes to quality. And that still remains to be seen. Now, like, these games can look really good. I think Doom probably ends up being pretty good because id Tech really knows what they're doing. But other games like South of Midnight, their last game, We Happy Few, looked really cool artistically and stuff, showed well beforehand. And then when we got our hands on it, the gameplay was just kind of like, oh, it just didn't come together in the same way that people thought it might. And even something like Hellblade 2, where it might show really well in a trailer or two, but then you actually see the game when it comes out and it leaves a lot to be desired. And so they've just got to get to the point where people can understand or expect the quality to be at a certain level. Because Xbox, or rather Sony, if Santa Monica Studio or Naughty Dog releases a trailer for their next game, you can rest assured that's probably a 9 or a 10. Like, if whatever Naughty Dog's working on, you don't have to like it yourself. You can call the director, Neil Cuckman. You can say whatever you want, but it's still probably going to be received very well, rated very well, and sell very well. With Xbox, I think they have the potential to get there, but there's just some disconnect in their quality assurance. And I hope that this is the start of that fixing, because that could mean that we finally get consistently amazing games from two of the big dogs in the industry. I just hope that actually happens. But I think that this is the first time where they've had these types of games, or this many games, that show this well, and they reveal them all in pretty close succession, which was really, really cool to see. But as for whether it moves the needle or not, I mean, if these actually come out and are able to land at like between 8.5 and 10 critically, and then also with fan scores, that's going to be the big deciding factor. I do disagree on Indiana Jones. I think that campy vibe, seeing that they've been able to retain that was one of my big concerns. Is like, we heard all of the interviews and stuff where they were like, we're making Indiana Jones for a modern audience, which is basically like, we're going to make it worse, as we've seen with like Star Wars, The Acolyte and stuff in the last week, where when you try to reinvent the wheel, sometimes it just stops being a wheel and it turns into a square and it doesn't work right. Sometimes you've already struck gold or oil, you need to stop digging. In this case, it seems like they are retaining the same kind of campy vibe, at least from this sliver that we've seen. Game could still end up being trash. We don't know till we get our hands on it and actually see, but I left this trailer being much more excited for Indiana Jones than I was before.
Yeah.
But as for whether it moves the needle, whether it like really changes stuff, I don't know. I don't think it's going to start selling consoles or anything, because I just don't think that that's their priority, and I don't think they really care about that. But I do think that it
should be
helps people keep their memberships for Game Pass. I just don't think you're going to see anybody like shelling out $500 for a Series X now, when they could just save up for a PS5 Pro and then play anything on PC or xCloud or whatever when they want to.
Yeah, but why? Because then you're basically saying, okay, they're mostly doing this to keep everyone happy, but it feels like everyone who has been subscribed to Game Pass for a long time with way less output has been quote unquote happy. So if you're not doing this to reach a new audience, then it seems like a very bad value proposition for them, because they're spending way, way, way more money to get the same amount of people.
But again, it's not about consoles, it's about Game Pass memberships. So they don't give a crap if somebody, well, like, of course they'd rather also sell hardware.
I mean, they say that, but who's way more inclined to get a Game Pass membership? An Xbox owner. Like, that is, I think the focus should be on getting an Xbox in people's houses, because that's the Trojan horse to Game Pass. That is when you boot up the system and it's like, bam, Hellblade 2 is out. And sure, they want to go where everyone else is, but with all these games coming to Xbox and PC day one, apart from Doom Expedition 33 was, by the way, also coming to PS5. Life is Strange, of course. Metal Gear Solid. Um, so yeah, Black Ops, of course. Diablo.
I think where they're at right now, they've accepted, and Phil's kind of alluded to this, like they've lost this console generation. Like this generation, they're not going to like magically make a big comeback. And historically, what has been pretty clear is that the generational hardware split is usually established at the start of the generation. People decide kind of whether they want to go PS4 or Xbox One, or if they want to go PS5 or Series X. And once the like first wave of people decide where they're landing, all of their friends probably end up going with that console, so they're all in the same platform and community. And it just, especially if the cool factor plays into this, and it's uncool to have a play or an Xbox versus PlayStation, all of that kind of factors in. And I don't think that will substantively change before the start of next generation. So what I think they're doing is they're in the phase where they're building up the library, and they're going to encourage people to check out Game Pass through xCloud and Xbox or through PC as well. And I expect a lot of these are going to go cross-platform. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure they said Doom is going to PlayStation 5.
Yeah,
right?
it's day one. Yeah.
So they're clearly considering bringing a lot of these big games to other platforms. And it's like, if you sign up for Game Pass, awesome. Or you can pay us $70. Either way, we're getting money. Because again, Microsoft has made trillions by distributing software, not by making hardware. They're not very good at hardware in any way. Whether they're trying computers natively themselves, or they're trying to make a phone to compete with the Blackberries back in the day. They just aren't very good at hardware, but they're really good at software distribution. And that's what they're trying to do now. And it's unorthodox for the gaming industry, but I think so long as people look at everything through the lens of whether you're buying their hardware or not, you might be missing the bigger picture of what they're trying to do, which is very different. It might not work, but it's pretty clear. Like after every executive says they're focused on hardware, on software, eventually you got to believe them what they're telling you, that is their priority. And so it seems that's where they're going.
Yeah, I mean, it is because what you said, they lost and they know. But there will be more, like GTA 6 will be a very important moment for both companies to convince them to go either way, especially with crossplay being a thing. And I still think a lot of people know that you can play with everyone on, no matter the platform. So that's, of course, going to be an interesting, like, if next year they can, like, with the new Call of Duty, be like, hey, get a Game Pass subscription, maybe bundle it with GTA 6 and get an Xbox Series X for 500. That would be pretty big. That you could probably market that in a nice way. If Fable is rumored to be launching around that time as well. I mean, right now they're making for the first time a very good case for getting an Xbox. It just feels for this generation kind of too late. But if they keep going, then I'm very interested to see what the next generation is going to look like, because Sony confirmed they want to have one temple release at the end of every year, so every holiday season. This year they're skipping that. We know that. They do have Astrobot. I played that as well. It's insane. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
But that, of course, is for a smaller audience. But yeah, next year they're probably gonna have Ghost 2, and then the year after that, I don't know, maybe the Naughty Dog new IP, right? So, but is that gonna, like, if this is what Xbox has every year? Ooh, that's gonna be tough to battle at one point if you're only launching one big tentpole at the end of every year. So it's gonna be fascinating to see if, like, come next generation, if that will have an impact. And it finally feels good that Xbox is climbing up again and being a more of a threat than they have been in the last few years for Sony, which in turn will only have Sony, work harder even more to, make our money worth it, which is only good for us. But
competition's a great thing, and I think part of the reason we've seen this wave of live service games from Sony is that they kind of realized, hey, we're at the peak. Xbox isn't really doing anything to compete with us, so we can afford to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on these live service games because we don't need to have the pedal to the metal with our first party stuff as much. We can have Naughty Dog take a break and work on a live service game because we're already winning. And I think
that turned out really well.
yeah, we can see how that turned out. And it's just, it seems like this is the story with Sony, is that they win a generation, then they get real cocky and they overstep and screw up a little bit, and then Xbox makes a little bit of ground, and then PlayStation comes back swinging super hard. Xbox screws up because they think that they've got it figured out, and then the cycle just repeats. Like famously with the PS3, with the pricing for that and everything they did around that time, and the 360 then starts making a ton of progress. And then, you know, PS4 comes out swinging, and Xbox is like, well, we're doing pretty good with the 360, so let's make our console a cable box. Cable is the future, and we know how that went. So I think competition's great, and, you know, these things will be mainly felt, I think, in the years to come when, again, the reputation is established that when you buy an Xbox for $500, $600, $700, whatever they end up charging for the next ones, you are getting a console that will be able to play some of the best games in the industry every year for the next console generation. Right now, the problem is that people buy a $500 console and they might get a few games a year that are pretty good. And a lot of them are going to be cross-platform and stuff. And so they just don't know if it's worth the investment. But once they've established Xbox Studios games are awesome, that's when I think you start to see actual conversions and people actually starting to buy into it.
Yeah.
I see some people asking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I wanted to say, like, Starfield, you did see that. I saw that around me as well, where, like, of course, that game did not hit as much as people hoped. But that was really the first time I saw, okay, an exclusive like that can push people on PlayStation. Like, if Starfield was really what, like, after last year during that Starfield Direct, then it felt like a 9, like a Game of the Year contender, right? If it was really that when it came out, I do think it would have turned heads. And if some of the games that we saw here, like Fable, maybe Perfect Dark, are on that level, then I do think people feel like they were missing out. So it's going to be an interesting time for sure. I think Xbox now did the best they could. And yeah, let's hope it brings more competition, because Sony has been resting on their laurels and they have to get better. Concord.
That's the other one I want to mention. So that other whatever punk
the game that
you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
That thing was a prime example of how you should properly, in my view, reveal like a live service game or something like that. It was a minute or two. I think Fragpunk.
Yeah. They immediately showed in the trailer. Yeah, it is a game that we all know, but it has very unique mechanics.
Yeah, and they're like, hey, here's 3 minutes of gameplay. Check it out. It's very unique. Well, maybe not very unique, but it has a unique system of these cards that totally change the environment for everybody playing in the match. That's a novel concept. It's not just a straight one-to-one copy and paste of Overwatch with different characters. Looks interesting. And then it's over. And so it's like, okay, if you're interested in that, go check it out. If not, no worries. But that's how you do this. You let the gameplay speak for itself instead of trying to spend 15 minutes convincing me that it's like Guardians of the Galaxy and it's like heavy in story, but it's also not. But then we're gonna have cutscenes.
They really you saw the board meeting, right, for that game. You saw the sort of the research they did to Gen C in that trailer.
For Concord, you mean?
Yeah. And for Fragpunk was like, let's make a fun game and how can we set ourselves apart with like a cool over the top mechanic. And that is what the game. I don't know anything about these characters. I don't care. If the game is good, if it has a cool mechanic, I will care about these characters. And that's how like Valorant was as well. I don't think there was a huge focus on the characters. People were like, oh, this plays very well. Okay, now I'm invested. Apex Legends, the same. So
yeah, I think this actually has potential because it just looks fun. And it doesn't have the same air of, for lack of a better term, desperation. There's nothing that's more of a turn off for gamers or anybody else than desperation.
And is it free to play?
I don't actually know what they said.
No, I
I
don't
think they
know
said
either.
coming 2025 to Xbox and PC. It does not say Game Pass. So,
No, but that would mean that it's probably free to play, you would think, right?
or I mean, it could just be. And it's another NetEase game. NetEase does a lot of free to play stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it at least looked a little novel and interesting. One of the other things.
Free to play. It's free to play.
Oh, well, sweet. That already is like
According
such a
to,
huge advantage over all these
That's
others.
more,
right?
that's less than $40.
Yeah, that is a good bit less than 40. One of the other games I've seen people in chat asking about is Stalker 2. To be perfectly clear, I have not played the original Stalker, and I won't pretend to have played the first Stalker. I'm playing this as somebody.
I want you to pretend right now.
Pretend right now, Luke.
Remember the ending of Stalker. It's
I am not joking, and maybe Joe Raptor will be the first one to buck this trend. I did not speak to a single person at SGF, creator, developer, media, or otherwise, that liked the demo they had. This trailer looks way better than what we got the chance to play. It could be that this is just a game that demos really poorly, and for whatever reason they're using really bad vertical slices. Like every game has vertical slices that are just not really that good of an indication. Like if they did a demo for like Starfield where it's just the opening 5 or 10 minutes where you're in that mine, you'd be like, what the hell is this game? This is horrible. Because it's a bad slice. It doesn't represent what the game actually is. So maybe that's what it is. Maybe the demo they cut is just not a good slice and not a good representation of what.
Yeah, but why bring that to this Summer Game Fest? Like
I agree.
That's no excuse.
I agree. It's a bad explanation. At least that would be one. Clearly, sometimes marketing guys screw up. Like with Dragon Age, the first trailer they dropped, which was weirdly cartoony and live servicey, just really cringe. And then we see gameplay and it's like a totally different game. We're like, oh, okay, why didn't you show that? You know, sometimes marketing just, they screw up and they don't do it quite right. But it could be that maybe it just shows, it's one of those games that just doesn't show very well. I don't know. It could be that it's an old demo. There's all sorts of possible explanations. But I'm not going to lie to people and be like, well, the demo wasn't the best, but here's hoping they figure it out. I'm just going to tell you if the demo was bad.
It's coming out in September, right? That's not good. That's not good. I agree. The trailer they showed was like, because I played it last year at Gamescom. I think I talked about it on the podcast as well. And that was really, like rarely that you play a demo that unpolished that they were like, yeah, let's put this in people's hands, because major features like seeing blood on the screen if you would get hit was just non-existent. So I would be getting shot and I was like, and then dead. And when you would die, you would have to restart the whole demo from the start. So it was like really weird. There was not a lot to do in the open world. And it was like I don't know, it felt really, really early still. So yeah, I don't know. And maybe they have two different games, and the one in the trailer is what they want, and the one they let people play is what they have. Either way, I would not be surprised if it's delayed, because I think it looks really cool, and I get why people are excited for it. But just, yeah, it's not what we both saw and played.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. Like, I'm rooting for these guys. The devs were some of the nicest people. Like, they were so sweet. But like, I told this video in the stream the other day, while I was like playing my demo, somebody was walking by behind me and he turns to see the screen, and like, I don't know if it was just that they didn't set it up right. I don't know what the problem was, but it was like a screen tearing simulator. It was like such aggressive screen tearing. It was bad. It was like AC Valhalla at launch on steroids. It was bad. And a guy who's walking by behind me and turns and sees the game, and I just hear woof. And I was like, geez, dude. But that's kind of what the impression was. Okay, now he's way cooler than me. Okay, damn it. So there's no doubt they have extenuating circumstances in the dev cycle. That everybody's sympathetic to that. We absolutely understand that. It could, like, the things going on in that part of the world could absolutely lead to delays and things like that. If they need to delay it, great, so be it. Like I will be the last person throwing a fit over that, but I'm not going to lie to everybody and be like the demo was really really good. No, I spoke to pretty much everybody in our circle, all of the TikTokers, the other YouTubers, the media guys from some fairly large outlets that we hung out with. Like everybody that tried that demo said that was a bad demo. I have not come across a single person who thought that the demo we played was anything like this trailer. If this trailer is what the game is, it looks pretty good. But what we played was almost nothing like this. It looked like a PS4 game with even by PS4 standards, outdated textures. It didn't run very well at all. It was struggling to maintain probably 30 frames a lot of the time. It just wasn't there. So I'm really hopeful it's just a bad demo. But I'll tell you guys.
It's launching in 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry people, but let's not expect the best from Stalker 2.
Keep your expectations low, and then if it's really good and it looks like that trailer, you'll be all the more hyped and excited that it lived up to those expectations or surpassed your expectations. But if you're expecting it to be a masterpiece, all I'm saying is at events like this, they try to show you the best of what they have. And if the best of what they have is unanimously like, oh, and people are walking by the demo and going, woof. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not a good sign. And so I guess I
really hope people are joining the stream right now and are like, why does this guy have a song? Let's talk about 2 games that actually were impressive, and one is the thumbnail. Star Wars Outlaws, we both played it. Of course, Ubisoft had 2 bangers. Their show, I mean, it was cool with the orchestra and stuff. Like playing the Star Wars theme and the Assassin's Creed theme. They didn't have a lot of other announcements. One Anno game for the people who care about that. And speaking of candles, Prince of Persia, they showed the candle with the 2026 date for the Sands of Time remake. I really was like, when I saw that, I was like, why show it? This is not good news. Just say nothing. Or show what the game looks like, because we're all curious. They really screwed up the initial reveal. It looked like a remaster, not a remake. We know it's in-house now. We know Ubisoft Toronto is helping Montreal. We know it's in the works. And show a snippet, give us something nuts, and we have something more. So they hyped it up, and then candle 2026. Hey, see you guys in 2 years. Bye.
Bye.
What?
Yeah, same thing. Like, I don't know. There were a handful of announcements this past week where it was like, yep, we'll see you next year. And that's it. It's like, what, why? Okay, cool. Yeah, Star Wars Outlaws, we actually got to play. How they had it structured was 3 different sort of saves that we could jump into at 3 different points to experience 3 different sort of gameplay elements. One was to experience the space flight, travel, and dogfighting mechanics and stuff. The other was more set pieces, very Uncharted, focused on like being inside of a ship as it's collapsing and breaking apart. And then the third was more combat focused, to give you a chance of seeing what that had to offer. And all told, I was thoroughly impressed by what we saw. It was probably the most polished and I think visually impressive game that I demoed. That I actually got my hands on
in August already, so yeah, it makes sense.
It was where it should be for launching in a matter of 2 months or 3 months. Like it was where you would expect that game to be at this point in development. It was. I mean, I remember looking at these trailers and stuff and being like, okay, what's it actually going to look like? What I can say, I'm pretty sure we were playing on probably nicer PCs. I'm not totally certain though, but it did look like this. It looked very, very good. And all the particle effects, crowd densities were super, super high. And it was just a very graphically and technologically impressive game. As for the actual minutia, it flowed really well from mission to mission, encounter to encounter. Of course, they didn't leave it open ended. They didn't do anything where it's like play for 3 hours, just go have fun and make your own fun. We didn't see what that open ended gameplay looks like because, of course, this is an open worlds Star Wars game, so you're supposed to be able to explore freely if you want. And we haven't seen any gameplay like that, but I imagine they're going to be doing preview events and things to give people the chance to explore more openly.
Yeah, I think it was a bad idea though, or a bad decision for them to be the first coming out party for the game, not show what people actually want. Um, because of course they've been saying from the start, even when they started development, this is the first open world Star Wars game, and then you let people finally play. Like the first impression is always the most important, and you also had a lot of like TikTokers and creators there who are not really following certain like parts of the industry as much as we do. So to give them the controller and give them 3 very linear Uncharted like missions, I totally get why people were like, why? And then during Ubisoft Forward, they showed the cool parts that we wanted to see in our gameplay. So while I think the linear parts were really cool and it showed some variety, like that it will still have the sort of Jedi Survivor Fallen Order type missions inside the main story, next to the open world. But I think it would have been way smarter to build an open world or like have one planet for us to explore during Ubisoft Forward, and then the next time you like if they're gonna do another event, show okay, yeah, you can still do the open world, but we recommend that you do a main mission as well. And then yeah, people are like, oh wow, yeah, I like the open world already, but it actually also has these linear more Uncharted like missions. I think that would have worked way better because now you gave people kind of the wrong idea of what this game is.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like the impression I got from what we played was that this was a mix of like a Jedi Survivor with a bit of old school Uncharted, like big set pieces, pretty linear, some platforming type stuff where you're climbing up walls and jumping across platforms, and then you land on this platform and it breaks, and then you slide down to a new area you didn't even see before. Like it's something we've seen before, and it's fine. It could be really fun, but it didn't come off as like your standard open world game, where there's missions that are more linear, but where there's, you know, the majority of gameplay is probably you just freely exploring. So I do think it was interesting to see them approach it this way and frame it that way. It may just be that they figured the flashiest stuff is going to be the linear sections, so they decided to focus on that.
Yeah,
and then
I
they'll
don't
do
know.
extended like cloud streamed previews for 2-3 hours later and let people experience it that way. But
Yeah.
this is just one of those different approaches to a longer marketing cycle. It's one of the reasons why I think a lot of studios and publishers have decided not to go the route of like the years long marketing cycle for their games. And instead, they just want to announce it, show what the game is, do some preview events, and then release it. Like,
Yeah, but what we're seeing, what the issue with that is that now Ubisoft kind of had 2 missteps with this game already. Like the first time they revealed the story, like I think when they revealed it, it was great. Like people were like, "Oh, this looks awesome." Last year, and then they had the story trailer, and they revealed it with the increased prices for the Ultimate Edition. That is, of course, $130. I see some people in the chat talk about it as well. Like, of course, remember you can still get the game for $70 like every other game.
yeah.
So it's not like the game is more expensive. Sure, if you want the extra stuff, it will set you back more money. But yeah, then they also had the Jabba the Hutt. Like, is that an exclusive mission? Can we meet Jabba without it? Of course, you can meet him without it, but it was not clear. That was stumble number 1. Then come Ubisoft Forward, they let us experience this game in one way. We could prepare previews based on what we played. So we, on like embargo after the Ubisoft Forward, are like, yeah, there are like a lot of linear levels, blah, blah, blah. And during Ubisoft Forward, they showed, yeah, this is the biggest Star Wars game, blah, 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 amazing planets, and whoa, the factions. And if you do this, didn't see anything like that in our demo. So there were really like 2, sort of communication pipelines or whatever, how you want to describe it. Basically, us, the creators and press, saying one thing, and Ubisoft saying no, but it's actually this. And then I'm like, okay, but why not show? Because that sounds actually way cooler than what we did. So And now they have only 2 months to set that right. If there was another year, but yeah, we will see.
I mean, maybe the strategy is just to go, look, it's impressive as a Jedi Survivor Uncharted-like game. And then we're like, yeah, it looks pretty good in that way.
Yeah.
And then like, but one more thing. It's also got all the open world stuff too. Look at that. So maybe they're just trying to set it up to be like, see, this part's pretty good. And we're adding all of this on top. See, it's even better than you thought. Maybe that's just the marketing approach, is to sell you on the linear stuff and then try to knock it out of the park after it's been set up that way with the open world components and things like that. But you're right. Okay. It does feel like there's two lines of kind of dialogue that are happening at the same time.
Yeah, you want to control that as a Ubisoft.
Because otherwise it leads to confusion and people don't know if, okay, some people are down either way, but confusion just makes them hesitant. And you can't, like, if you're trying to sell a game for $70, you can't have hesitancy. You need them to be like, yeah, let's go for it. So I agree. They need to figure that out.
Yeah. 100%. I, by the way, want to show one thing that I'm wearing. I'm not sure if you see it.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. He's got the dev team. Who did you kill to get that? Whose luggage did you grab at the airport?
I can't say. So I'm part of the dev team now.
Joe Raptor's part of the dev team.
We still have 2 more months. I can make it happen. Jar Jar Binks. I can see what I can do now.
Okay, Jar Jar Binks as a romanceable character. I am in. Joe Raptor confirms.
Yeah. Crunch developer. No.
We're working late. Oh man. So I think that what they showed looked really good. I think that they can unify the messaging a little bit more, but I like 2 months in the gaming industry is a lot of time. So I'm fully confident they'll be able to communicate whatever they're trying to communicate. And some people, interesting enough, this game also ignited a little bit more debate about space games, because Star Wars Outlaws is doing a pretty interesting thing. You can see as if you're watching the stream, you can see this. If you're listening, basically as the spaceship approaches a planet, you get a little menu that pops up and gives you a list of different spots that you can land on. So Mos Eisley Docking Bay, Bestine, Wayfar, Mos Algo. It looks like there are potentially even more destinations beyond that, but you select which destination you want to go to, and then it's going to warp there, and you get a little animation that plays as it flies into a cloud in front of the planet, and then you get a seamless transition from space to the planet's surface. And it's funny how a lot of people are like, well, actually, that's a loading screen. Yes. Good job. Yes, it is. The point is, I think there's a chunk of people that feel that this is way more immersive and therefore better than something like what Starfield did, where they just did a quick load screen. Other people, feel that they prefer the load screen better. They don't like seeing these animations play out. I think both answers are right. You can prefer one over the other. That's totally.
This looks way better. It's cool.
I personally like this. If I'm playing a video game, the less time spent staring at a loading screen, the better. And even if it's a covered up loading screen and it's like sneakily hidden, I prefer that. Like, like God of War 2018, all the times when he shimmies through the cracks in the walls, like, hate to break to you, those are loading screens. Still better than if they paused.
Travel to different realms, you would like move the thing and then the trees would like kind of light up and stuff like that. That was of course also a loading screen, but yeah, you never had to sit there and watch like a tip or something.
Yeah.
I think it's very smart.
I think if you honestly prefer the load screens, more power to you. Some people I know really like seeing in Starfield
there's this
their
game
screenshots.
Called Starfield, like,
yeah. Some people love that though. Some people actually do like seeing their screenshots and stuff that they've done and whatever else. That's fine. I personally prefer to never be pulled out of the game.
I've not met those people.
All I know is there was a tweet I saw with like 2,500 likes or something. So 2,500 people out of the 8 billion on planet Earth.
That is Todd and his bot army. That has to be
Todd with all of his secondary accounts. He's texting Matt Booty during the showcase. I need you to make another account. We gotta
16 times the likes.
16 times the likes.
No, I've never met a like. It was funny though. In Spider-Man, you could like they, of course, with Miles Morales did not have any loading screens, or with the remaster on PS5, but you could turn them on because they were like the subway scenes, which of course very funny. So yeah, you could still watch the loading screen, but that again was like a very fun way to do a loading screen with Spider-Man having
Yeah.
like different animations in a subway. But in Starfield, I don't know, like if you don't make any pictures, you still see the same freaking shot of the environment or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's sort of an artistic choice whether you cover it up or not. Like God of War Ragnarok or God of War 2018 didn't need a no-cut camera. They could have done camera cuts, they could have done load screens between big environments. They could have done that, but they chose instead to pursue this more ambitious thing of the camera never cutting. The whole game from start to finish is one fluid shot, so long as you don't die, of course. And I think that that is a cool concept, and obviously people found it very immersive and really liked it. And I personally like the way they're doing it here, even if it might take a few seconds longer to get down to the planet's surface. The fact that it's not breaking for a loading screen is, I just frankly prefer it, but that's just
Yeah, and I don't think it's taking longer. It's like they, of course, hide the loading screen, so otherwise we would be looking at the loading screen. It would probably take the same amount of time.
Yeah. Real
Cool
quick
stuff.
to go through these super chats. Let's see where we're at. So Maya, thank you for that. What are your games of the year this year? I'm assuming so far. Mine is Infinite Wealth. It has the most enjoyable turn-based combat I've seen in a video game, and has some fantastic or some fan service for older fans. As of right now, what is your GOTY?
Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. By a long shot.
Checks out. I
It's
think
a
at this
boring answer, I know, but it's
it's a safe
it's what I
answer,
feel.
but safe answers
what
are
I feel.
usually still correct.
I mean, some people already forgot the game probably came out, but it did, and it was really good.
Yeah, I think I'd probably have to also say Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm trying to think of what else even came out. I could be like Hellblade 2, but no, I mean, I've gotten a lot of.
I mean, I played Lego Horizon. Does that count? Like, that was really fun. Astrobot. I played that.
Yeah, the game I played for half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to what other big things even came out. I mean, I like Infinite Wealth as well. But Rebirth is just like, it's just stupid flashy and cool. Oh, Helldivers 2, that's a good point. Helldivers 2 was massive. Yeah, I might have to go Helldivers 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 also came out. That was pretty solid. And it's probably a toss up between Rebirth and Helldivers 2 for me.
And I see CJ James saying Stellar Blade. Like, that was my surprise of the year so far.
Yeah,
really
same. Cool. I did that in Hellblade, or not Hellblade, Helldivers.
Yeah.
I did not expect to enjoy those games, and then ended up really liking both of them. Samaya also with another super chat. Jor really subdued a developer and stole a guy's disguise Hitman style. I mean, it kind of seems like he's being very quiet on how he got that shirt.
Yeah, I mean, maybe check the credits of Star Wars Outlaws. No, I'm kidding.
Interesting.
No.
Now I'm curious.
I mean, yeah, and you never should like give away your secrets, right? But I wanted the Assassin's Creed Shadows dev team shirt, but might still be chances later on.
All right. How do you even get one? Do you just ask them?
Let's just hope that that developer didn't have something like important to do in these final months. Hope so. I was like making sure that they did like the concept art or something like that. That stuff is done. So
now I'm intrigued. Okay. I'm gonna keep digging, guys. I'm gonna poke and prod. We're gonna figure this out. I feel like there's so many little hints being tossed out. I'm gonna figure it out. G Mendez, thank you for re-upping your membership as well. Just wanted to say on behalf of all of us, thank you guys for all the work you put in. Golden content, super community. Thank you, my friend G Mendez.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. And I mean, shout out to you guys, the community. Of course, like, we will disagree on stuff. Like, Joe Raptor didn't like the Indiana Jones trailer. I did like the trailer. Joe Raptor.
Did we watch the same trailer?
Yeah. And I thought it was pretty solid.
I'm gonna like
choo.
It took that like the show was only an hour. That trailer already felt like an hour. That cutscene.
Yeah.
I don't know. He had like the grenade, she threw the sort of stone, the important stone, like she fell or something. There were so many things happening in that cutscene where I was like, what is even going on? And how he then got rid of the Nazi at the end was just super stupid. They were like looking each other in the eye, and Indiana Jones like decided to hit the other guy first, so he fell down. And now I know, when I see this villain in in the game, I know this is his stupid end. He's gonna like fight in a cutscene and die. Like, why is there no boss battle or whatever? I don't know, man.
I don't know. I really like the part where he said it's Morbin time and then kicked him off.
See, we did watch a different
trailer. Yeah, but we can disagree on stuff and still have a good time. Like, even if you are still super stoked on Stalker 2, for example, cool. Like, I'm just telling you what I saw as someone who has played a demo they put together. Like, I'm not going to lie to you guys about anything. And if it pisses people off, so be it. I know there's somebody that posted a comment to like our live stream clip where I told the story of playing the demo, and somebody was like, wow, I bet you didn't expect the community to be so united. I was like, united against what? Like, the truth? I'm telling you what I saw. Like, I don't care if you don't believe me or whatever, but I'm going to tell you what I saw, and that's that. Like, you don't have to like it. That's fine.
I saw Cal Bossman did like a breakdown of that trailer for people who are curious. Check out his video on it. I was already like, this is not for me. This is just too slow and kind of weird. I could not follow it. But he did a great breakdown of they're like at one point they're fighting, and then like some boxes like fall because the ship is of course like tilting like this, and then some boxes fall. And then the camera switches, and then one of the two boxes that is like going down just disappeared. Like, there are weird things like that in that scene if you really analyze it. It's crazy.
There's all sorts of things like that in a lot of games, though, where like one of my favorite like guilty pleasures was the breakdowns of little inconsistencies and incongruities with like cutscenes in, say, like The Last of Us, where you'll watch the cutscene play out and you don't realize that halfway through the cutscene they warped the characters to a different set basically in the level that's hidden, and then the scene plays out there because they swap out these objects with lower poly ones, and then this object that was in the shot before is now gone, but it's because they needed to save memory to do this other effect. Like, there's so many cool little sleight of hand things that happen in game development for cutscenes and everything else. It's fascinating to me. And so stuff like that, like if you nitpick it and watch it through and find that, I'm sure there's lots of examples of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for me, it passed the vibe check, which was good, because it's real easy for these types of games to get screwed up quickly. And I'm still braced because we've been burned so many times when people try to like create games for modern audiences, and so I'm still braced that something like that might happen. I'm hopeful it doesn't. I don't want that to be the case, but we've been burned so many times.
I just think that not a lot of people will care about the game in the end. I do kind of fear that it will go on to be like 3 million people, 5 million people played it or whatever, and then it's like, okay, but how many people bought it? And not a lot. But I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I'm like hyped for the gameplay. I was always like, this sounds like a really cool game to like go through in a week and put down and not think about anymore. But
I want to hear from everybody in chat.
Hope
I mean, because we have a chat that's very diverse from all over the world. I want to hear from you guys. How big is Indiana Jones as a franchise in your circles? In my circles, I think it's like, oh, it's a nice little, like, I've watched the movies before, but like, it's in the same realm as like Avatar. You know, I go see the movies, have a good time. I'm not buying merch. I'm not like reading fan fiction. I'm not like crazy into it or anything. Whereas like Star Wars, people are crazy into Star Wars. Like, there's people who their entire personality is based around Star Wars. Or like Harry Potter, people will get tattoos of like, and wear clothing of what house they're a member
of. The Great Circle. Oh.
Of the Great Circle. Yeah, it's just a circle. Yeah. All that, it's treasured in my circle. Giggity goo. Nobody knows Indiana Jones, not at all. Next one after Star Wars. Oh, really? I love it.
I mean, like the movie, of course, was like had like 143 million loss for Disney, apparently.
Yeah, but that's just for Disney. Only losing $143 million is probably pretty good for them recently.
It could have been much worse.
They're like, oh, we only lost 100 million. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Phew. Yeah, it's kind of a meme now. Yeah, they've had a couple of movies in a row where it's like, okay, maybe like let Harrison go to bed.
Maybe they should have done like a new IP.
Well, I think a big thing is that Todd, I showed this like months ago.
Like Dayton Nate or something?
Well, Todd has been obsessed with Fallout 3 or with not Fallout 3 with Indiana Jones for like decades. He's been talking about it. We're preparing this big like Starfield critique, and as part of the Starfield critique, we went back and we found old forum posts that were later, like they were Usenet posts and forum posts that were backed up to Google Groups at some point somehow. And Todd Howard back in the late 90s was making posts on those forums, and you can still find a lot of them, and he's talking about how he wants to like one day do a space RPG and how he thinks that could be super cool. There's all sorts of cool stuff that we'll talk about in that video, but one of the other things that comes up is like his love for different franchises. And even in the making of Fallout 3 documentary that was filmed mostly in 2007 and 2008, I'm going to put it on screen now. On his desk in this 2007-2008 video, he has the idol from Indiana Jones just sitting on his desk. And it's like, if anything, it's more in frame than he is. Like, and so he has been a giga fan of Indiana Jones.
Yeah, okay.
For a long time.
So it's gonna be his fault if this flops.
I think this is like his actual passion project. Like, if anything, it could be really funny if Todd's magnum opus, if this is like really well received.
Strikes you're out, right? Fallout 76, Starfield, Indiana Jones, or.
Well, with this, he's only an executive producer. If Elder Scrolls 6 fails and flops, like that's going to be tough to recover from.
Oh, yeah,
but we'll see. Anyway, people have been huge. Oh, yeah, there's a skeleton in the fridge in Good Spring. You're right. I forgot about that. But yeah, there is a little nod to that.
Sorry. We wanted to talk about Assassin's Creed, but I actually do have to run now. I got like it's Friday night. We got to go out. So
he's going out with the dev team. Yeah.
They want the shirt back. Just got caught. Some stormtroopers are.
You wore it on the podcast? Are you insane?
Yeah, I do wear like maybe I should not have done that, but I was already arrested and escaped, as people can see right here.
Oh yeah, dude, that was so funny. That was so funny.
This was after I found the shirt, but I escaped. So yeah,
dude, it was so funny. Those guys come up to me and Jacob as well, and they say something to Jacob,
really good.
And they're like, "You scum! What are you doing here?" And Jacob pretended not to speak Imperial or whatever language, and he's like, "I can understand you. Let me try something else." Abulaku nutabo do Jedi. Like, the guy kind of broke character for a second. It was like, get over there. It was good. They were very good. Anyway, well, it's been a pleasure, Mr. Joe Raptor. I'm really sure we will have the chance to talk much more about AC Shadows and Outlaws and everything in the future. We're going to keep an eye on all of these games and continue chatting and talking as the days and months go by, because we're about to hit probably a pretty crazy year and a half.
Yeah, and you're almost at 100K, so you're going to get another...
Oh yeah,
bronze.
Where even are we?
99.5.
Yep. Oh baby.
Sorry about the podcast. I do think you've lost some people, but you will get back on track. Oh yeah, I always go to the Spotify, because we know, lovely people, if you like the show, go to your mobile app. Go to. Oh my God. So we have like a goal. We want to make sure we want to go back to the 5 stars. We had 5 stars for the longest time. But there's someone, maybe they're watching right now. Mm-hmm. They know who they are. Again, I got stormtroopers at my door. I'm going to send them to you. Going to issue a warrant. because someone gave us less than 5 stars. But since then, we had 116 times the reviews. Now we have 116 reviews right now.
Wow.
And that was, I think last time was 102. So people are really listening. They're really going to their Spotify app. They're hijacking their grandma's phone, going to the Spotify app, giving us those 5 stars.
Absolutely.
That's very, very kind. That helps us a lot. So do that. And yeah, it keeps the show going. And we will be back next week.
Yes, absolutely. Much love, everybody. I will be back on stream here in about 15 minutes. I'm going to go take a quick little break and blast AC for a little bit. So head over to Luke Stevens Live and join the rest of the stream as we go through some other topics that we didn't get to today. Much love, everybody. Thank you for watching and hanging. We'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye.